Hi, it's Rabbi Jeremy from Mahar, and I'm here for our seventh night of Hanukkah candle lighting video for Hanukkah in 2024. It's actually the last night of Hanukkah in 2024 because the last night of Hanukkah period for this go round of the holiday is actually on January 1st, 2025. So we've actually spanned our way into 2025, which I can't remember a time that we've done that, at least recently. So this is kind of a different thing from the usual. And for our second to last day of Hanukkah, we're going to talk about Hanukkah food, which most people think is a pretty good topic to talk about. And, we know in North America that, North American Jews, the kind of default foods for Hanukkah are latkes and sufganiyot, which sufganiyah is a jelly donut, basically. That's what they're called in Israel. They're not exactly like, you wouldn't necessarily go to Dunkin' Donuts. You could for a sufganiyah, right? Because those are jelly donuts too, obviously, but they're not cooked quite the same way. Typically, the sufganiyah that you would get not at Dunkin', but at a place that really does sufganiyot, is a little bit more like a Polish punchke, which is another kind of filled donut that you see in grocery stores around Easter. So it's a little bit, it's a little more dense. It's not quite as fluffy. It's not quite as, the frying isn't quite as focused maybe as you would see with Dunkin' Donuts, where there's or other American donuts where you really get a significant kind of mouthfeel of oil and grease. It's not quite the same, but it is still a donut, right? Dough, fried, sugar, stuff in it, all that stuff, right? So that's the sufganiyah. And then latkes, potato latkes, they're usually made out of potato. You can make them with other things. It's just a fried pancake kind of thing. You can use the potatoes that you buy at the grocery store for hash browns and kind of skip the shredding the potatoes part and all of that. Why those? I mean, it's really pretty straightforward. They're cooked in oil. And the traditional story of Hanukkah is, as we get it, right? We've talked about the story from the Talmud, where the story was that when the Maccabees entered the second temple and they found the place defiled and they were going to fix it up, and they found one cruse of oil and the oil lasted for 8 days, right? That's the miracle of the oil that probably isn't really what happened at all. That the first time we see it is 650 years after the Maccabees happened. So probably not a reliable story, but because it is kind of central to the myth of Hanukkah, right? The origin myth of Hanukkah. Because it's central to that, we have all of these foods cooked in oil, right? So sufganiyot and potato latkes. And there are other ways of doing this, right? That's kind of the point of humanistic Judaism in a way, is that you could do this in other ways. You want to go to McDonald's and get French fries, I mean, they're cooked in oil, right? So, you don't have to stick with latkes and sufganiyot. But while we're talking about latkes, right, there's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of really just people who are almost, if you'll forgive the expression, religiously committed to the idea that there's only certain ways that you can properly eat latkes. And there are also annual debates. What's better, the latke from Hanukkah or the hamantashen for Purim, right? I don't have a position on that, and I've never been convinced by any of them. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg has been the judge for some of these things, and they're fun. But people also get very particular about their latkes. So the two usual options for toppings to latkes are applesauce or sour cream. And sometimes the way it works is applesauce skews to the younger set and the sour cream skews to the older set. Or, at a certain point, adults kind of go, I don't want applesauce on my latkes sometimes. I think they're fine either way. Whatever you want to do is great. But, arguably, you want to at least give the sour cream thing a shot. Because, not just because sour cream and potatoes, because obviously we know that. You can go to Wendy's and get a potato with sour cream. But that's not why sour cream is like maybe canonical, to use a word out of either religious studies or comic books, right? Why sour cream? There's a reason connected to Hanukkah. And if we rewind a few days, you remember we talked about women and Hanukkah. And we mentioned two stories. We mentioned the story of Judith, and we mentioned the story of Hannah and her 7 sons. So Hannah and her 7 sons is definitely not a food-oriented story, except, okay, her sons were being asked to eat pork, and so yeah, there's food involved, but not food stuff that Jews had tended to carry forward. But the story of Judith has a thing connected to sour cream, and it's this. The story is basically that Judith tempts or induces Holofernes. Holofernes is a Greek name, but he's described as a Persian general. So we've got all kinds of confusion with the story. But she induces him to come into her tent by offering him food, and she gives him dairy and wine. And dairy is salty, and that's how you manage to get somebody to drink a whole bunch of wine, is you get them thirsty with the dairy. And then, okay. But you can see the link already, right? Dairy is important to at least one of these kinds of scriptural myths or quasi-scriptural myths connected to the Hanukkah story. So sour cream plus a latke is like a canonical sort of choice, right? We're getting the dairy part, we're getting the oil part, we're kind of putting the whole holiday together if you dump sour cream on your latkes. And I guess there are probably other dairy products you might put on latkes that could also arguably work. Cheese on your latkes or cheese in your latkes would be great too. So, and you know, the more cheesy your dairy is, the more it tends to have some oil of its own. So yeah, you know, latkes plus sour cream is kind of the, yeah, this is the food that kind of puts the holiday all together in one shot. I guess other than the milk chocolate gelt, which usually the chocolate's not great. I've never been excited about the gelt, but gelt is out there, right? And I guess you'd want milk chocolate as opposed to dark chocolate because dairy and whatever else. So Hanukkah foods, there's not like a lot of Hanukkah foods, particularly if you live in the Ashkenazic world. We really kind of default to this potato latkes and sufganiyot thing. And even the sufganiyot thing is kind of newish. 35 years ago, people really weren't talking about sufganiyot at the typical American Hebrew school, and now we talk about it all the time. So things change as Israeli culture flows into American Jewish culture. Things change. And so the sufganiyah has become pretty important, and you'll often find people bringing donuts from wherever as part of a Hanukkah party. Let's go ahead and light our Hanukkah menorah for our Chanukiah, the Hanukkah menorah, for our 7th night of Hanukkah. And again, you got to take it on faith that I put things in left to right. And you'll see right to left, but we'll light them all left to right. And we're only down to one blessing because we're on the 7th night of Hanukkah, and it's kind of the middle of the week. It's a Tuesday. So there's nothing particularly fancy to say other than our usual blessing for our Hanukkah candles. If I can get the shamash lit. Okay, there we go. Nivarech et haor ba'olam, nivarech et haor ba'adam, nivarech et haor shel Hanukkah. Let us bless the light in the world. Let us bless the light in humanity. Let us bless the light of Hanukkah. Okay. And that is our Hanukkah candle lighting for our 7th night of Hanukkah. December 31st, 2024. Happy New Year. And Chag Sameach.